Hello, welcome to Podsongs. I'm Jack Stafford, and I interview inspiring people in service to others as inspiration for a new song. Today is a very powerful episode. I've had many inspiring episodes, but this is raising the game today. I'm joined firstly by a very special musical guest, the pianist and composer Shane Thomas. Now, many people get called a prodigy, but he's entitled to the title. He's so good that EMI Music gave him a publishing deal when he was 11. I don't know what I was doing at 11, but I didn't get any publishing deal, that's for sure. He's in his 20s now, but he's already had enough drama to last a lifetime. And then we get on to the actual guest we're going to interview together is an ex-Muslim and human rights activist, Yasmine Mohammed. She escaped a forced abusive marriage to an Al-Qaeda operative. She became an advocate for women's rights through her non-profit organisation, Free Hearts, Free Minds, and she's a member of the Centre for Inquiry Speakers Bureau and on the board of advisory for the Brighter Brains Institute. Mohammed's been interviewed by Sam Harris, Seth Andrews, now me, and multiple countries all around the world, and she's self-published a book in 2019, Unveiled: How Western Liberals Empower Radical Islam. So it's a tricky subject matter, and it's got even harder when we had trouble connecting. She had a death in the family. We had to split the interview over 2 days. First I chat with Shane, and then we do Yasmine on the second day, and then she had a lot of internet problems. It's took a lot of stitching together, but it's worth it. So I hope you enjoy this chat with Shane Thomas and Yasmine Mohammed. I'm a big believer in reincarnation. I just want to say it straight off the bat. I've got a lot of episodes about spirituality, and I think with musicians, it's because you study so hard in the last life. You're just doing so much work that it just comes through. Because you were 3 years old playing on the carpet saying, "Get me a piano," no?
That's right. And I insisted that not only could I sit there and imitate playing the piano, I went around telling people, no, I can play the piano, as in, I know how to do it. Just sit me down at the instrument and I'll show you. But, it's very hard to get through to people. And when you're 3 years old, you're powerless. The adults run the world. So, and it took until I was 7 to get my hands on the piano. But yeah, that changed everything, because my grandmother just saved up what little money she could and got me my first instrument. And within like 3 weeks, I think, I'd started composing already. It was just an innate drive, I suppose, that seized me, and I just, had to write a piece. And of all things, I had to write it in F sharp, which is all the black notes, really. It's funny because they say that when you're a beginner at the piano, that it's easiest to start with just the white notes and not worry. And for some reason, I did everything backwards. And I was always more comfortable with the black notes, where it's like 5 sharp, 6 sharp, 5 flats, than playing on the white notes. So I've got backwards intuition from a pianist.
So you were. I've got the story written out in front of me, but you know it better than I do. You were 9 and you had piano lessons. You got grade 8 when you were 9. You entirely skipped grades 1 to 7. Yeah.
Well, I skipped grades 1 to 4. They made me do grade 5 in order to do grade 8. So I did grade 5 when I was 9, and then when I was 10, I got a distinction in my grade 8. And I think the threshold for getting a distinction was 87 marks out of 100, and I'd got 93. And I just don't know how I managed to pull that one out of the hat as a 10-year-old. He must have been, as I remember being so stressed out, because on that day I had the exam and I hadn't brought any of my books with me. Oh my gosh, you just don't know how forgetful I was as a child. So clumsy. I couldn't remember anything. So I didn't know these. I had to remember the pieces from memory, having only committed them to memory a week ago. I was expecting to have page turner, everything all sorted out. But yeah, had to remember everything. But my fingers found their way. That's how it often goes. It's not like declarative memory. It's muscle memory.
Mm. 'Cause I've seen videos of you on YouTube as a younger man, and you're just
Uh,
improvising on a piece that people play with just finding all the notes as you say. Yeah.
yeah, I always initially learned to play by ear, and in fact, really, I think that's still the initial process. When I hear a piece of music, I think, where do my hands need to go, and how do I split the notes between the left and the right hand?
Hmm.
Um, yeah. Why am I freezing up on the spot? um,
And then you were on the one.
yeah,
You're
I've
on the.
always I always learn by ear basically, and I always start writing from improvisation. So the ear, that's just basically saying the ear is guiding me to know what to play next.
Okay.
It's just a totally intuitive thing. It's not like I've planned it out. I've written out on a piece of paper, this is what I'm going to do when. I just let the piece sort of unfurl, if you understand what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I regard it as like a living thing in its own right, and it's going to tell. I'm kind of subject to the piece rather than I'm the master of the piece.
Hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah. You've just had such a connection with the music. I understand the piano is just you can just express yourself through the piano as I can use my mouth or my legs.
Exactly. It's like a second voice for me.
Right.
Um, and I think that's been true in more recent years as well. That some of the things that are very difficult or very personal to say to the public up front verbally, I can I can express it through my music instead,
Right. Yeah. You're telling a story. And
and I can say it with a greater accuracy. And words like to be put in a box a little bit. They have a definition. They're a bit narrow, but music is so subject to broad, wildly varying interpretations that it's perfect
yeah.
for conveying the messy stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Always in a film. You hear that the music coming up behind it, and it can say more than the actors.
Mm, yeah,
And Jamie,
and
I
it's
said
especially
Jamie Cullum described you as amazing. You played on the One show in England.
yeah. That's well. They showed a clip of me on the one show, and I think again I was like 9 or 10, and yeah, he did. He said I was amazing. Um, yeah, I don't know. I got quite an unusual amount of attention when I was very young. There was kind of this idea of the new British child prodigy going around, and they ended up giving me this horrible nickname, which was Mini Mozart, and it stuck for so many years. And I was always complaining to my management about it, like, "Can we please stop using this catchphrase?" But because that's what the media does, it sensationalizes stuff. Um, yeah, I ended up spending like 5 or 6 years trying to get rid of this stupid title. I hated being compared to someone who lived hundreds of years ago and I was clearly nothing like.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, it's a big. You can tell the difference, but I guess normal piano. That's all we see. So, but they gave you
And
a.
also because I mean, it's both an insult to me and an insult to Mozart because it's like you're saying I'm trying to replace him or something.
Mm, mm. And then you got a recording contract when you were 11, publishing at EMI.
Publishing, that's right. Yeah, I had a publishing deal with EMI from 10 actually, I think. Um, and yeah, EMI were really keen on my piano music, and they thought, why don't we orchestrate it? And they invested £50,000 into me
Wow.
and funded the recording of my first album, which is called Note My Dream. And 6 of those tracks have been recorded with ensembles or an orchestra.
Wow.
So it was the Hungarian Symphony Orchestra who they booked in. Um, Originally, we were actually going to send me out to Hungary. Um, I was going to record. I was going to do the recording session, like 12-hour recording session at least, um, and then they were going to fly me back the same night. It was so crazy. They didn't want to get me even a hotel room for one night.
Jeez,
I know, bit nuts.
that is crazy. Or an 11-year, and you were 11.
Yeah, can you imagine how exhausted and grumpy I would have been?
Yeah. That's
Would have left me with a sour taste,
yeah, it
I
would. I
think.
mean, you want to see some of Hungary, you go all that way. I mean,
You know, you want to actually see the country.
you do. Budapest is
Yeah.
spectacular.
It was going to be like -10-degree weather, but even, you know, that's an aesthetic in its own right.
Yeah, but I mean, a lot of composers they wait, they work for years to record with an orchestra, and then you've got it at 11. It must have felt like this is happening. Did it? I mean, going back to the reincarnation,
I think it
did it
just
feel
didn't really
familiar?
feel. Mm, it just felt natural.
Right,
I wouldn't say it felt familiar, but it just felt like what I was born to do.
right.
I didn't really feel pressurized by it. Like when I performed, I was never intimidated by crowds of any size really. It just didn't bother me. I was just up there. I was doing my thing.
Mm.
I wasn't even like fully conscious of the fact what I was doing, what significance it held.
You hear that with a lot of great musicians. You're just channeling, it's just flowing through you.
Yeah, and when you're up on stage, I think it's good to just try and get out of your own head a little bit and just think, no, I'm playing, and just play almost like for your own ears,
Mm.
and everyone else is just tuning in basically. You know, it's not if you start treating it like a performative thing, it can be very stressful, and I think that stress is brought about entirely by yourself, to be honest.
Right, right.
I think the crowd wants you to be comfortable as much as they want to feel comfortable.
Yeah, they say if you can be within yourself, that's all the
Yeah,
great artists. You look at a great singer; they walk on stage, when they're within themselves.
yeah, they just bring their presence on stage,
Yeah,
nothing more really.
that's what people
Mm.
want to see. That's people pay to hear, and that's what creates great music as well. That's when you're writing a song or you're composing, you're within yourself, and wait if you can bring that
Yeah,
on stage. That's what.
and that's one of the good things about our modern world is that we can share our lives with people so much more easily now
Hmm.
with the internet. You know, because now people don't just want to hear the music and to have the posters. They want more of a relationship. They want to know more about the details of your life, and
Right.
that's a new development in all industries,
You lose a lot of
like
privacy though.
film and music in particularly. Yeah.
Yeah. How do you feel about that? Because also you have a very personal story, a difficult childhood. After that, it went. You had some difficult times, no?
Yeah, I mean, I was a difficult child from the beginning, but I definitely got a lot more difficult to handle after the divorce. Um, I mean, I got on with people, but when I was alone, I had a lot of psychological difficulties. I was quite prone to panic attacks and just feeling as if I couldn't breathe.
Okay.
And, you know, my dad would have to soothe me to get me to come out of that panicked state of mind. And then I'd also have a lot of anger, and most of that anger became directed towards myself. You know, attempting to jump out of a window, electrocute yourself, this kind
Ouch.
of stuff, or
Yeah.
just repeatedly. Or then just another weird thing was this compulsion to just keep hitting my head against walls and tables and things, and that was just. And then I just sort of. It was quite disturbing for my dad because I'd just be sitting there hitting my head over and over again, saying, I want to die, and And then I'd do all these drawings where I was like doing something horrible, butchering my own mother or something, and that's really the stem of all of that anger. Was that I must have felt like I'd been abandoned or forgotten.
Because your mother left when you were just after the...
Because she left when I was 8 and she didn't support my music.
Right.
She was totally against it. She took a knife once and went up into the attic where our drum kit was kept and slashed all the drum skins with a great big kitchen knife. And that was her way of saying, I don't want any of Shane's talents to be exploited. I don't want him to be anything.
Yeah, it must have been very... This could be a really heavy episode because also the guest, Yasmine, has... Have you followed her story? Have you heard about her childhood as well?
Yeah, her story is difficult to read, isn't it? Yeah.
It's really...
The part that scared me the most actually was where her daughter was at risk of undergoing FGM, which was so common in Egypt. I heard that 97 or even 98% of married women in Egypt have undergone FGM of some sort. Crazy.
Mm.
And that's such a scary thing to us, which is so normalized out there.
Yeah.
But having been raised as a Canadian primarily, I'm sure Yasmine must have been absolutely terrified by that prospect.
Oh, I think it's just...
I think it's only the product of brainwashing that you could ever be complicit with that.
She was really let
And
down also.
I think brainwashing is a big part of what's going on out there to Middle Eastern women.
I think
It's a long, long journey of indoctrination to get to the point where these teenagers, young adults are saying, "Oh yes, I definitely want to be subject to my husband. I'm his property." To be bossed around and abused.
Yeah, it also happened. I think she wasn't protected even in Canada as many from serious abuse. So, I mean, we'll hear her story from her, but it's difficult listening.
Well, she didn't have the support of her mother and even her aunt, who just passed away today.
Right.
She didn't have any contact with Yasmine after she left the religion, after she left Islam. So it just tears families apart.
Yeah. You're gonna have to come...
And that's your support network at
Yeah.
that age as well. She was 20 at the time, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
And had years of
20
abuse.
I think she was 20 at the time she got married anyway.
Right.
To that guy, the Al-Qaeda operative.
Well, this is probably going to be one. You're gonna have to come up with some crazy, amazingly haunting music to come up to. Good luck with this piece. I'm saying this is going to be a challenge for you, Shane. I mean, to communicate.
I think so.
I can't put any lyrics to this. I mean, I think it should just be.
If you'd like it to be instrumental, that's fine. Yeah, I can do most of the undertakings, like I said, from home.
I don't think.
And yeah,
I couldn't take the pressure. It's just so much. It's going to be such a dramatic episode. It's yeah, and it's also such a difficult thing because everyone who's anti-Trump or there's a big situation in America that you can't be anti-Muslim, you have to be, and also in Europe you have to be supportive, you can't be racist. So then they don't get the protection.
That's really seeped into the academic world as well.
Right.
There's such a disproportionate amount of left-leaning lecturers and staff within these universities. And then it's also among the youth as well. So when you go there, you feel very cornered to go along with the agenda because you're not going to gain any friends by speaking against it.
Oh dear, sounds like she's not only got no support from the family, but no support from society.
Well, she was getting the opposite narrative that was needed. Um, Everything about Islam was being affirmed, and it's okay. It's a different culture. We don't understand. We've got the wrong impression. Um, why can't we just look at things objectively and say that's right or that's wrong?
Hmm.
What I don't think this insistence on moral relativism is helping us to solve world issues.
No, I
It
mean,
just breeds a complacency.
sure, religious freedom is important, but you have to draw a line when things like this start to happen.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't know what the regulation is in Egypt regarding the FGM, but that has to be outlawed as soon as possible.
Yeah, 100%.
Unless it, for all I know, it could be illegal, but it's actually it's slipping through the radar because it's just so culturally accepted. Hmm.
Yeah.
Look, Yasmin had some really terrifying stories. She shared about she used to get beaten with an orange stick if she couldn't memorize verses or I think she had to memorize whole chapters of the Quran. Um, and she was told, it's not that bad. One of the other boys who failed to remember had hot oil poured down his mouth.
Hmm. Hmm.
I can't even imagine the kind of pain or damage that does to you. And I'm sure it's not an isolated occurrence.
Yeah.
Another scary thing is, and this is more practiced throughout Africa, um, is breast ironing.
What?
Breast ironing.
Hmm.
So, in addition to wearing to covering up, in order to avoid garnering sexual attention from men, in some Islamic countries, they perform breast ironing, which is literally what you think it is, steaming the breasts in order to prevent them from developing in the normal manner,
Hmm.
stifle their growth, starting from the age of perhaps 10 as a normal age for this to start.
That's terrible. That's
No, and of course, and it's absolutely torturous, and it what it does to the body long term is really it's never going to heal.
but that's
It's mad, isn't it?
yeah.
Yeah. Have you got any stories that you've heard as well?
No, I mean, well, I've heard of FGM, of course, and but
I mean, but it's not even just the women who were affected by this. I saw this a really startling video where a little boy had just been circumcised, which in my opinion is really the MGM, which is the male genital mutilation. Um, and he'd woken up from the surgery and he was screaming, in pain, and he's saying, "What have you done to me? What have you done to my body? You know,
mm,
give me that flesh back." And where is it? And they showed it, the flesh that had been removed in a little medical bag, and he just covered his mouth and gasped and screamed in absolute horror. How is a 6-year-old child gonna understand what's just happened to him?
mm,
And he was sort of swearing at the parents, saying, "I effing hate you," and all this.
mm,
But can you? But is he wrong? But obviously, we watch the video and they're acting like he's overreacting. He's just He's playing up,
okay.
but he's having an. He might be having an abnormal reaction to an abnormal circumstance.
Mm,
Nothing more.
yeah. I mean, I'm circumcised myself when I was young, just because it
Sure.
wouldn't retract, and I don't remember.
Oh, okay.
I remember it was not a pleasant experience. Yes, but I think it was explained to me. why
But
I
that's
had it.
different if
Yeah,
because phimosis is actually a medically
right.
diagnosable condition. That's totally different
Yeah, yeah. No,
to something
but
being forced upon you.
sure, sure. But I think it's also, yeah,
Mm.
it's in a terribly, there are a lot of, also the, I've heard from Yasmin's story that also the young men are also forced to be, they're very aggressive as well, and it's there's some, I think we should hear it from her really, because I don't want to repeat things she said, but I guess we'll get it from her
Yeah,
mouth.
in
Yeah.
which case is I feel like we've diverted this conversation away from music straight
Oh
to
yeah.
Yasmin's area of expertise. Um, why don't we get back to where we began then?
Right. Yeah.
And yeah, if you've got anything you wanted to know about my music or how it's changed, or you know,
Yeah. So, but how old are you now?
I'm 21 at the moment.
21, and you're putting out so much music. I mean, you're certainly prolific. Yeah. I was looking on your YouTube
I've
and
Yeah, I think in the last year I've probably made about 30 different tracks or something. But a lot of the work I've been doing lately, I've been functioning as a producer for other artists, and so like I haven't been putting my name as accredited on those records, but like I'm behind them in some sense.
okay.
In addition, yeah, um, in addition to an alias that I use, um, I also go by the name Covenants, which is a fusion between me as a classical composer, and my kind of work partner in the industry. His name is Alan Laporte, and he's a multi-platinum producer. Has worked extensively with an artist called River, who's a really great vocalist. He's had like 30 million streams on one track on Spotify. And yeah, he just hit me up on Facebook one day and said, do you want to go out for a Nando's, basically? And then the darn Nando's was closed. And so we just went to the place across the road, and we had like a trial session to see, what would it be like if we were to write music together. And it just started coming out so quickly, effortlessly, that it was just an obvious move that it benefits both of us if we just work together, because we get this done quicker, and arguably the standard of the music goes up when there's two brains in the room.
Mm. And what kind of music is it? Classical or all types?
So we've been writing like house tracks, mainly house and dance, a little bit of synth wave even. But our kind of trope, I guess, has been that he does a lot. Alan does a lot of the electronic elements, and I bring some kind of, I don't know, emotional touch, some classical touch to it. Often you find there's frequent use of piano, even
Hmm.
felt piano in our tracks, which is like kind of outside the what's normally welcomed in house music, and kind of like quite classically programmed strings as well. But that's basically our way of saying we're not a cookie cutter house artist. We're a genuine fusion of two different worlds.
Hmm. Wow.
Yeah.
And did you go to a conservatory, or did you skip that as well?
Um, I didn't go to conservatoire. I just went. My music lessons were just a concurrent thing with my secondary education. I just had it was only 35 minutes long once a week. That's what I had for like 7 years,
Hmm.
really. That's where most of my teachings come from. And since then I haven't really kept up my lessons very consistently. Most of the time I'm not so interested in learning new pieces,
Hmm.
or refining my techniques so much. I'm just so much more in love with the writing side of it, and the improvisatory side of it. I just like to sit down and sort of like pick a key, pick a chord, and see where I can go from there,
Hmm.
and really just close my eyes and be a bit meditative, really observe what I'm hearing and then know where to go next. And try not to be the player, try to be the listener and the player at the same time.
Right. Ah.
And then if it's not the easiest thing to do, but when I can get into that mind state, I feel like I can really just start writing and not like without really having to think so hard. You can make it into a right chore,
Mm.
composing.
Oh
You
yeah.
can force yourself to when you got writer's block,
Mm.
especially, and you know that you're being procedural about it, and something's off about the output.
There's two ways to write music. You can either do it, with this side of the brain. You can just sit, do it in a mechanical way, and you know that this structure, or you can just let it flow, like you're saying. And I think that's definitely the end results are dramatically different.
Yeah, and what's happened as a consequence of allowing myself to do that more is my music's become less defined by rhythm, by
Mm.
strict rhythm, 4/4 3/4. Um, and I've got this thing nowadays. I call it speaking in phrases, where the piece isn't really broken into super distinct bar lines. There's just kind of a phrase, a pause, then the next phrase,
Mm.
and it's all about knowing when is the right moment to speak. When to speak this phrase,
Mm.
and it's that tension. It puts the sort of constant tension into the music because you're always wondering when is the exact moment I'm going to hear the next section, because it's
Mm.
not predictable. It's not the same precise unified rhythm going through the track.
So how is it for you to listen to a lot of music that's made today to the click track and is very, shall we say, plastic or synthetic?
I Yeah, I do. I'm actually really into dance music myself. Really into
Okay,
techno, particularly
I'm surprised.
dub techno. Yeah, I've got quite a few reasonably rare like German dub techno records in my little record collection.
Hmm.
But also pretty into jazz as well, where like you're saying, it's sort of there aren't really rules.
No.
I actually listen to a lot of music from video games as well.
Hmm.
I think video games have been a great influence on music because I was just thinking about this earlier today actually that um like I was remembering a place that you go in The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess where you go through the snow, and it's so foggy that you can't see anything, and you've got this really sparse music, um, where there's like must be like 20-second gaps between the phrases,
Hmm.
and then between that you just have like this held like dyad on a choir, just um, and the wind is just blaring basically
Hmm.
throughout this area in the game. But then it's like the wind actually becomes a part of the music. It's almost like its equivalent of having tape hiss in the background. It just fills the silence. And this is something I love it when there's a good like decent noise floor to a recording where it's not perfectly pristine.
Mm.
I, I don't want to use the word digital because digital is not inherently the problem. It's just a case of how clean it makes everything.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
And an artist I really like is called The Caretaker. I don't know if you've heard of
No.
him. I believe he's French. Um, he makes music sound like a memory that you've pulled up from the 1940s. It sounds like that kind of post-war happy sort of jazz stuff.
I'll check him out. The
Yeah,
caretaker. Yeah.
but then he warps it and chops it up, because one of his big themes is dementia and Alzheimer's. So he wants to make his music sound like it's from like a sequestered time that's so far removed from you. So what he does is he uses these really thick, like almost like white noise backgrounds, where it can either sound like rain or it can just sound like wind. It's just, yeah.
Hmm.
So I've wanted to start doing that in my music, to have like a soundscape background, and then have like a more sparse piano part over the top, and see where that would take me. Maybe even start doing field recordings,
Mm.
start recording bird songs at different times of day and using that as the basis. So then there's actually like a call and response between, these bird calls and stuff that you've recorded,
Mm.
and how you interplay with that.
Oh, you definitely hear things on another level to me. I mean, I've got 3 chords going on here, and that's about it. So,
I don't know. A lot of people. Messiaen was another one who had a crazy obsession with birds, and no composer ever went to the extent that he did to transcribe birdsong accurately. Both in terms of pitch and rhythm.
so what do you think you'll do with your music now? Because it sounds like, obviously you could do film, but it sounds like computer games could be a crazy avenue for you. Are you making a living now? Because there was a BBC documentary called "Extraordinary Teens: Young, Gifted, and Broke," and when
Mm,
you were struggling with, you had no money. Um,
that's right.
how are you doing now? How has it gone from there?
Well, at the moment, I've I've started looking for work. It's very difficult to make any kind of living in the music industry.
Yeah.
So I see even though I'm very attached to my music, I these days I see it as a labor of love. I'm not I'm not doing it for the money or for even for the recognition. Um, I just do it anyway because it's who I am and who I always will be. And I can try running away from that, but it will come back tenfold.
Mm.
So at the moment I'm just trying to get an ordinary job. I think I want to help out. I've always wanted to help out people. I used to give concerts for free
Hmm.
in care homes. Actually, I did that for many years. It was just I just liked to make everyone happy.
Mm.
So I think naturally I'll be quite suited to work in either healthcare or charity sector. So
Hmm.
that's kind of what I'm pursuing at the moment. But no particular, because apart from music, I feel like I don't have much of a personality to me sometimes.
Well, no, I
It's
mean,
been such
I can
an
tell
integral part
you're
of
just a,
my
beautiful
life.
artist, and that, you're just so uh, you're just obviously born to do this, so you're just maybe overly talented, and it's hard to. But being 21 as well, I mean, that's also when I was 21, you didn't know what
I
you
think
wanted
it's
to
just
do.
an a
It's
of
difficult.
course, it's
It's
just an age thing as
yeah,
well. You just have to they say you have to trust the process,
yeah,
figuring things out,
yeah. You often you've got
You
a
can
fantastic
live
career ahead of you.
you can live in the you can live in the future all the time, but that sounds a lot like anxiety.
Hmm. Oh
Or
yeah.
you can live in the present and you can just go with the flow.
Uh,
Sounds a bit more fun to
Oh,
me.
I'm with you. Present and correct.
Mm.
Well,
I want people who live here and live
yeah,
now. I think that was Faithless
yeah.
who said that.
No, but other people, it sounds like other people are recognizing your talent and saying, "Please come and work with me," because, like I do, because you'll make me sound
Yeah,
good.
my publisher is really keen and ambitious. Like they know that when they're working with me, they're working with very much an artist. I'm a very visual thinker, and that's really a key component of my music is the visual story it
Mm,
tells. Like if you take a piece of music like Chasing Paw Prints, which is one of my personal favorites, it really goes from the outset being like a tundra, a desolate tundra, and then seeing little animals running in the snow, leaving footprints behind, paw prints
Right.
behind, to seeing people running around in the snow and, you know, having a snowball fight, and, you know, and then getting lost in this wintry wilderness, and then the feeling of regret that comes after all this is, yeah, there are moments in my music that are marked in the score. It says images of a forest covered with a blanket of snow
Mm.
or
Wow.
something, and I just have these stupidly long descriptions on the score, and I think, what are you trying to do here? Are you trying to write a short story, or are you trying to write the score to tell the musicians what to play? And the thing is, both.
Mm.
As I'm trying to achieve both
Mm.
within that very constrained medium, because I think in order to play my music, you have to know the picture that you're trying to paint in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Because it tends to start with an image. Like one of my pieces is called Mrs. Matisse. Again, that's off my first album actually, um, and that's actually based on the Henri Matisse painting of the same name, Madame
Mm-hmm.
Matisse, and it's got all these. It's very French in style. I'll say that much, and it's got all these dividing lines. It breaks the painting up into many different colors. So it's like the multicolored woman.
Mm.
It's most peculiar, and yeah, that image, that artwork became the basis for my piece of music, obviously,
Mm.
which sounds unusually French to my ears anyway. Sounds a bit stereotypical. So like an accordion player
Yeah.
in Paris.
Oh, you're on another level.
Yeah.
Let's depending on the piece of music, at least I can say that I collaborated with Shane Thomas if I contribute something like let's maybe I do some lyrics or provide some instrumentation.
Yeah. So
Let's leave it open maybe then.
do you, cool. Do you play any instruments
Yeah, I
yourself?
play the guitar. Um,
You play the
mhm.
guitar. I thought so. Yeah. Are you more of an electric or an acoustic
More
player, or
acoustic. Yeah,
flexible?
yeah.
Acoustic. Great. Well, I think acoustic guitar could go really well with whatever we put down.
Okay.
Um,
So I
do you like your harmonics?
love them.
So do I. I think we need to get some of those in there.
Just so I can say that I've played with the when you're a big star, then I had my moment in the sun with you. So this could be my opportunity. I
Fantastic.
don't you won't go backwards. You'll never come back to me once you're a big star. So I'm going to seize this opportunity now.
Great. Well, I don't see myself as any big star. If anything, I think you're sort of a little bit past me in that regard.
Well,
Your podcast is doing very well these days.
your the reviews you get on your music that I've read online, people you just touch people in ways that I can only ever imagine. So yeah, I think there's no doubt about who the artist in the room
Yeah,
here is.
for me, I only need one really good review, like some of the ones I've had and I've read. That's really why I do
Yeah,
this, not for view counts, not for the money.
yeah.
I just do it for the love of music,
Well,
for her sake.
hopefully this project will bring you into more people's awareness, and they can go back and listen to the amazing music you've already done, and follow you for your next piece.
Yeah, and follow me because I've got a new project in the works at the moment. It's called they're called the Nocturnes, and they're four pieces I've written, and um, they're based on highly vivid imagery and some of the more turbulent emotions I've experienced recently. So yeah, it's a very personal project, and I think it's some of the best music I've produced in a long time.
Wow.
And I can't wait for people to get the chance to listen to that.
And where's the best place to follow you while people are thinking about it? There's
Um,
Spotify or
yeah, the best places to follow me are typically Facebook and YouTube.
okay. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, your YouTube channel. Yeah. Oh,
Um,
there's so much music on there.
Yeah, there's a lot of posts on there. In fact, I should put some of my newer material up there. I've been a bit inactive in that regard. I think, to be honest, I don't stay too much in the public eye, and maybe that's something I should work on. But yeah, I think just keeping on top of whether I've released something new is the best thing to do with me.
Yeah, keep it a steady stream, but even if you space them out, people like that, so they're waiting the new stuff. And yeah, I'll definitely tell everyone to subscribe there, and I really can't wait to hear the new stuff, and especially the stuff that I'm involved with. That will be
I can't wait or imagine how it's going to turn out. Do you think Yasmine will have any input on what she's after?
They don't usually. The guests usually just happy to hear what we come up with. So it's a magical mystery
Great.
tour.
Do you mind working over Zoom if you want to do a collaborative session?
That would be great.
Because I can just run logic from my end, and I'll be able to hear you and your input. So
wow,
we can work that way if you'd like.
That would be wonderful.
Done it in the past number of times. Great.
All right, Shane.
Look forward to it, Jack.
Yeah, well, let's chat again tomorrow then with Yasmine, part 2.
Yeah, we'll fill in the gaps tomorrow.
Fill in the gaps.
All right. Thank you, Jack.
Take care, mate. Bye-bye.
Bye.
And now the second day of the interview with Yasmine Mohammed. Hello.
Hi.
Yasmine.
Hey there, how's it going?
Going well, thanks.
So I have to tell you something.
Okay.
So I'm in South Africa.
No, I didn't. But
oh, okay. Yeah, I'm in Cape Town right now. And the internet, like the electricity here, is not fully reliable. But I am tethered off of my phone. But just in case, there might be a blip in between. Like if I lose connection on my laptop, like from my Wi-Fi, then I'll have to switch over to data.
Okay. Well, I'm in the south of Italy in the countryside, and there's a thunderstorm coming, and the internet's normally not very good anyway. So I guess it's just going to be a competition between us who gets dropped.
Okay. Okay, good. So this is okay. I'm glad. So we'll figure it out. Hopefully it won't happen, but you never know. I was in Sicily not too long ago, actually, a few months ago, last year, but the end of last year. Yeah.
Ah, so is that on holiday, or are you because what are you doing at the moment? What is your role? What are you?
Well, I teach at a university, but all the courses are online now. Mm-hmm. And so my husband and I are both fully online, and our daughter's school went online. And so we're like, why are we staying in Canadian winters? Let's just leave. And what more beautiful place than the south of Italy? So we went there. We spent October, November, and December there.
Okay.
And then it started to get cold, and so we're like, we're going to chase the sun, and so that's why we came to South Africa. That's it. We're just chasing the sun, chasing the warmth. I mean, we're stuck in the house anyway, so we might as well be stuck in a beautiful place with beautiful view, right?
Yeah. Well, did you have contacts, friends down there, or you just booked and decided to go?
Well, we both, but we didn't see anybody because of all the restrictions. We didn't have anybody in Sicily. We knew people in Tuscany and Vienna and stuff, but
it's kind of ironic, isn't it? You're just seeing inside of beautiful apartments. You get a beautiful view. You're just going to move from place to place.
Yes. Well, it's better than being stuck in a Canadian winter. Be stuck in a, South African winter, so or Italian.
And so, what do you teach online?
Well, right now, interestingly, I teach a lot of how to teach online.
Hi guys, how are you doing?
Hi, Shane.
Hello, Shane.
Excellent. It's great to meet you.
So yeah, I was just telling Jack that I teach how to teach
great.
online.
So it's actually a good COVID business.
That's
that
like
like-
layers of irony on
Is
that.
that
I'm
like
not quite
teaching
sure.
people? Is that like
Yeah.
teaching
Yeah.
people to get a PGCE or something else?
Yes, yeah, it is. So, but it's mostly, I think PGCE for you, is that K to 12? Is that
That's
like
that's
high school and-
postgraduate education certificate. It's I think
Okay,
it's just
then
like the
yes.
normal certificate required to teach.
Okay, yeah. So my students are other professors. They're
Oh, wow.
university instructors that were just interested in learning online initially for all these years. Since 2012, I've been teaching this. And it's just been instructors that are interested in incorporating technology into their classes or teaching online. And then when COVID hit, of course, now it's huge. The university is just inundated with requests because so many people are forced to go online and they don't have any idea how to do that.
I think we've accidentally, I think we've accidentally unleashed a really good business model for people to teach online because all the universities have switched to it and are having to get good at it. And I'm now wondering whether they're going to start exploiting that avenue in the future as like a full-time thing where you can go to UCL online from home.
I think they will because it's going to save them a lot of money.
I think it's an obvious business move.
Yeah.
They could team up with Airbnb and have Sicily.
That's a good question, actually. Have you worked with many people abroad then? Because since you're doing this online.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So my university has contracts with other universities around the world. So I'll be teaching like a group of professors from Brazil or from China or from whatever. So it's been interesting, especially with COVID, just speaking to people and seeing our different experiences. But sorry, one second.
It's a bit crazy out there in Brazil.
Can you just shut the door, please? Oh, Brazil was really tough. In my class, I had 15 students. They're all from the same university. And within the 13 weeks, we had 2 moms get COVID and one of them didn't make it.
Yeah, that's the kind of situation out there. I mean, Bolsonaro is quite really the president, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, South American presidents
have they got a reputation?
They've got a reputation. Yeah. Oh, Canadians are not to talk anyway. Our prime minister is an embarrassment, so I'll keep my mouth shut.
This conversation is already going to be controversial enough without going into politics. I mean, we're on religion, so let's not add any weight on our shoulders here.
Let's not go there.
Yeah. So, because I thought you were like a full-time activist, I had just this impression but no, you managed. You want to keep a distance between it, or you?
Yeah, activism was never a career choice. Like it was just, I just started to tell my story mostly because it just started on Facebook, really. So what happened was, you know that infamous episode with Bill Maher and Sam Harris and Ben Affleck? I don't know if you're familiar with this episode, but
I remember you.
No?
I know that you did a good interview with Sam Harris, and I tried to
I
find
managed
it.
I managed to find the podcast with Sam Harris actually, and I watched most of that. Yeah, okay. I did.
You did
really
hear
enjoyed
it?
that. He's a great interviewer, anyway.
Oh, great! Yeah.
Yeah, we're not up to that standard here. Don't expect anything like that.
In which case, why have you gone to such extensive efforts with the soundproofing? Look at that wall of pads behind you. No, Jack.
Me?
Oh, me. That's so nobody hears me.
I can't even see Jack. How do you see Jack?
Oh, you haven't got video?
Oh, you haven't seen me?
No, you're hidden from me. I thought your camera was off.
No, I'm. Shane can verify that I'm visible and.
Yeah,
oh, that's weird.
Fully in a phone padded room. Well, you're missing. I'm quite handsome. You're missing on a trick here.
Oh,
It's just,
Yeah, it's a good
now
piece
I'm
for the eye.
sad.
sorry to. Yeah, never mind. I'll send a picture. It's okay.
I want some eye candy. So this whole time I've just been looking at a J with a red circle around it. That's really odd.
Oh my god. No,
Yeah.
that's strange. Let me try and.
That's weird because
That's
it's usually hidden to everybody, or
It says bad
like,
network for me. Maybe it's not showing it only to because maybe Shane's closer.
Oh, it could be.
You can't
Oh,
send it all the way to South
okay.
Africa.
Oh, sorry,
well.
you didn't tell me you were in.
You can see Shane, yeah. You've got Shane.
I can
You
see
didn't tell me
Shane.
you
Yeah.
were in
Okay,
South
right, he
Africa
is-
at the moment.
Yes, I'm in
what's,
Cape
what's
Town.
dragged you out there?
Yeah. The sun, really.
You're on holiday.
We're following the sun. Kind of, because my work is online and my husband's work is online and my daughter's going to school online. We just figured, what's the point of staying in a Canadian winter,
I
right?
see.
Just go look for the sun. And so we ended up coming here. But we're just making plans now to head back home because my daughter really misses her friends. She's 12, so she's at that age where her friends really are an important part of her life. So
That's understandable.
So we have to go home,
Mhm.
but it'll be summer there. So
What
it'll
kind
be
of
okay.
temperatures are you?
So what was the Ben Affleck thing then? Let's get.
Okay, yeah. So Ben Affleck so it was Bill Maher's show, and Sam and Bill were talking about how Western liberals basically are failing people in Muslim majority countries who are fighting against the regressive beliefs over there. So they talked the illiberal beliefs. So they talked specifically about two things they mentioned. Number one, how you can be executed for being LGBT in like 15 Muslim majority countries, and how you can be executed also for denouncing the religion of Islam. And then they specifically spoke about in Egypt, where 86% of people polled, this was Pew Research, said that people who leave the religion should be executed. And for me, as somebody who has left the religion and who comes from an Egyptian family, it was like they were speaking on my behalf. Like I felt really grateful that there's these two men on television in America that didn't really need to even care about this topic, cared enough to bring it up. And it's kind of weird because they made me realize that I should care about myself too. But it was so I didn't even really think it was a fight worth fighting because it was just way too big. But here they are starting to fight it. And then, of course, Ben Affleck swoops in like the white knight that he is and starts calling them gross and racist and shut down the conversation. And then the next day on Facebook, all my friends were like, yeah, so glad that Ben Affleck shut down those racist white American men, Islamophobic bigots, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, hang on a minute. You guys are so misinformed. And I felt almost guilty. Like I felt ashamed that these were people that I've known for like some of them 15, 20 years, and I'd never shared my background. And so I felt like, how could you be so misinformed? Mm-hmm. And so then I started talking with people my friends on Facebook. And then I started to write my story, I started to write my book. And when I started to do that, I was publishing it on Tumblr, chapter by chapter, getting people's feedback and ideas. And when I started to do that, I started getting inundated with messages from people all over the Muslim majority world. So over 50 countries, right? Like not just the Middle East, North Africa, South Asia, Turkey, all over. And just telling me how much they relate to my story and how glad they are that I'm speaking out. And they kind of compelled me all this time I was still anonymous on Tumblr, obviously not on Facebook, but once I started going public, I was anonymous. And I had some people, even from India, where it's not Muslim majority, but there's still a fear to speak out. People writing to me saying, like, I'm so glad that you're living in Canada. You're in a safe country where you can speak for us. You can be the voice for the voiceless. We're so grateful. And I was like, oh, man. I guess I have to do this now. And so I kind of got pushed into it. And I was really, really nervous because I had been trying very, very hard to keep quiet all these years because of my daughter's father. I didn't want him or any of his, Al-Qaeda people to know where I am or that if I'm even alive, specifically because I was trying to protect my daughter from him. So coming out was a big deal. But anyway, very long story just to say that no, I did not choose activism. It chose me, and I still don't see myself like I'm still kind of in a split personality. I still have my real life, and then I have my Yasmine Mohammed life, and it's just kind of off the side of my desk, and I haven't committed to it fully. I don't think it's possible for me to do that. Like it was never my, it was, I'm just going to continue doing it the way I'm doing it. Are we recording this, by the way? Have we started the podcast?
Okay. we kind of slide into it subtly. Yeah. So.
Okay. Yasmine, if you don't mind me asking, if activism was never your, the pursuit you had in mind, then what led you to establish Free Hearts, Free Minds?
Excellent question. And it's just a continuation from where I left off there. Once I started getting inundated with messages from people all over the world, as you can imagine, I hadn't even dealt with my own trauma. I'm in the middle of writing my book. So here I am unearthing all of these things that have left, latent in my mind for all these years. So I was already in a fragile state, and I'm getting contacted by people who are telling me their traumas, and I'm empathizing with them to the extent that I'm taking on their traumas. And it basically almost killed me. I just was, I was suicidal. I was agoraphobic. I was having panic attacks constantly. I had to take time off work. And that's when my relationship with Sam Harris started to become a lot closer, because I was supposed to be going to Australia on a movie tour for a documentary of his called Islam and the Future of Tolerance. And I had to write him an email and say, I can't do this. I can't even leave my house, let alone get on a plane and go to Australia. As much as I would love to, of course, there's no way I can do this. And so he didn't even care about the movie. He didn't even care about anything. He just started asking me about my panic attacks and trying to help me through that. And that's when I got into meditation. Up until that point, I was like, oh, gosh, just woo-woo.
You just thought it was some kind of
crystals, like essential oil.
New age nonsense, basically.
I did. I'm like, I love you, Sam, but that stuff is just silly. But then, you become so desperate. I'm on antibiotics. They're making me feel horrible. I'm trying everything. And at that point I was like, I'll do anything. I'll do acupuncture. I'll do meditation. I'll do crystals and essential oils. Just anything. I need help. And so I tried it, and it legitimately saved my life. I say that, without an ounce of hyperbole. It really saved my life.
More than 10% happier.
Yes. Yeah. And and so that's why I started Free Hearts, Free Minds, because I realized I don't have the capacity to support all of these people that are contacting me. And so I needed professionals to be able to do that. But I wanted to facilitate that process. I wanted to help in some way. So that's basically, I'm the middleman. So I just connect because people know that they can trust me, because it's very, very dangerous to admit that you've left Islam when you're living in so many countries, even in the West, unfortunately. But because I'm so vocal about it, because I'm so public about it, people know that they can come to me and they can trust me. And so I basically connect them with therapists, and then through the generous donations of wonderful people, we're able to get them the mental health support that they need.
That's great. So what do your other colleagues within Free Hearts, Free Minds do to assist in running the organization? Because I know you're the president.
So there's so the reason why we had to write it out like president and everything is because now we are a corporation, and that's Sam Harris is paying for our lawyer to become a corporation as well. And so as a corporation, we have to have a president and a board and, directors and all that stuff. So the two we have right now, two therapists. One is in Australia, and she is an activist as well. So that's why she has to cover her face. And another woman is in Lebanon, and because she's in Lebanon, she also has to cover her face, and we use a fake name for her on the website, which I honestly can't remember what the fake name is right now. I'm just thinking of her real name, and I don't want to say it. And so both of those women have to remain anonymous as well, but they both have experience leaving Islam and going through that whole, religious trauma. And we do have other people that work with us who don't have the experience of being ex-Muslims, but that are just, incredibly knowledgeable and empathetic and kind people that are willing to donate their time and energy in supporting people who are really, I honestly believe at this point, are among the most vulnerable people on the planet. We don't talk enough about A, LGBT people living in Muslim majority countries, and B, atheists living in Muslim majority countries. And so those are the two groups of people. That's why it's called Free Hearts, Free Minds. Free Hearts is referring to LGBT, and Free Minds is referring to free thinkers. And we generally support agnostic atheists, and because if you leave Islam and you go into Christianity, or leave Islam and go into Judaism, which happens as well, there is a support system within that community. But if you leave and become an atheist, we got nothing. We don't have a support system. So that's why I feel like those are the two most vulnerable groups. And obviously I empathize the most with women who have left Islam, because that was my personal experience. But I just can't imagine if I were a lesbian leaving Islam, like just add another layer of self-hate and fear and all that stuff.
If you're in a Western country, what happens if you leave Islam? I can imagine if in Egypt or in Islamic countries it's very difficult, but what about in the West?
So there's two layers. Your first layer is your family, and then your community, and then the government. So sometimes it's top down, sometimes it's bottom up. In countries like Iran, for example, it's the Islamic regime that will execute people if they leave the religion. But within your family, they will accept you. Or if you're gay, your family will accept you, your community will accept you, but the government will not. Whereas in somewhere like Canada or somewhere in the West, the opposite is true. So for me, I had to get away from my family and away from my community. And then I was able to have the support of my country, because I'm living in Canada. So there are different restrictions depending on where you are in the world, but there's always restrictions. There's always fear. There are thousands of honor killings that happen every year. There's we don't have specific numbers, unfortunately, because there's a lot of, oh, she ran away, oh, she's gone to Pakistan. So we don't know exactly what the numbers are, but there's a show that recently came out on ITV called Honor, which relates the story of Aqsa Parvez, who is a woman from Iraq who went to the police on 5 different occasions in the UK, saying, my father's trying to kill me. My father's going to try and kill me, because she didn't marry the man that her father asked her to marry. And she didn't receive they didn't take it. They didn't understand that she was being serious. They thought that she was just being, some, 20-something young woman saying, my dad's going to kill me. They didn't understand that she really meant that he was going to kill her. And they eventually found her chopped up, stuffed in a suitcase, and buried in her family's backyard. And her family went to Iraq. And, as you'll see if you watch this miniseries, at one point he tells the police, I'll go to Iraq, and when I go to Iraq, I will be a hero. Because he knew that the community would support him, that an honor killing is not something, it's not considered murder. It's almost considered something that only somebody very pious would be able to do to protect their family's honor. There's a very recent story right now happening in Italy of a young Pakistani girl who also went to the authorities and said, my family are forcing me to marry this man I don't want to marry him. They've beat me up with whips and belts, and they sent her back home, and they have, CCTV footage of her family walking with shovels and coming back 2 hours later, and they can't find her. And so it's an assumed honor killing, but the case is still ongoing. So, I could go on and on. There's a documentary called Honor Diaries, which, is all about this topic. So even though you're in the West, and I'll tell you, in Canada, we had a young girl. I think I said Aqsa Parvez. Aqsa Parvez was actually in Canada. She was 16 years old, and her family, her father and her brother, murdered her for refusing to wear hijab. We've had a few honor killings like that in Canada as well, in the US and the UK, all over the place. So the danger is there from your family if you're in the West, or from your community. And if you're in a Muslim majority country, you're still in danger from your family, your community, but also from the government. So it's that much worse. And that's why my organization supports people in Muslim majority countries.
So even if there's no killing involved, there can still be many. Could I just ask you, is it a bit delayed for you, Shane? Is the recording?
Sometimes the audio
Are you hearing Yasmine?
Yeah, sometimes the audio is glitching out for a few seconds, but I can hear her nearly all of the time.
Oh, okay, that's all right. It might just be my internet then. Okay, sorry. No, I was just saying, Yasmine, that it's also, even if there's no honor killing, there's still a lot of breaking from the family. You can never go back and speak to your family, and is that the kind of thing?
That's almost the default. Yes, that goes on much more commonly. That's what happened with me. I was threatened, but my family didn't come after me. I did escape with my daughter, and we changed our names. But to be cut off completely, to not have any contact with your family, for them to disown you, is unfortunately it's very common. It happens with people who are also Scientologists, Jehovah's Witness, sometimes with Mormons, all of these very tight-knit cult-like extremists in their religions have that mentality of, you're either with us or you're against us. Family doesn't matter. You're either part of the religious tribe, or you are nothing. You are the other. You are the hated. That's it.
Yeah, because I'm aware that the Islamic community can be very supportive if they've got members of the faith and they're struggling with unemployment, struggling financially. They'll make an effort as a community to bring food, to offer shelter, to do things for that community. I'd say, maybe even to a greater, maybe probably even to a
100%.
greater extent than the Catholic, than the Christian churches, I would say.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason why it was so difficult to be discarded from the community. So I was just speaking to a friend of mine who we both left at around the same time. And that was one of the hardest things for us, was just to be without that support system that you almost took for granted, because you grow up, if you need to go to the bank to get a loan, there's always somebody. there's somebody there that can do it for you. You hit your car and you need to go to the body shop. We know a guy, So there was just that constant support of the community that was, it felt loving, but it was very conditional love. It's very conditional. You only get this kind of support if you are part of the ummah. So being part of a family, like I didn't expect to be supported by the community because I'm not a Muslim anymore, but the way that you're discarded by your actual family is very jarring.
And if you don't mind me asking, how would you say that your relationship with your mother changed drastically over the years that you knew her, from the time prior to becoming a born-again Muslim compared to the transition after?
So she became a born-again Muslim when I was about like 5 or 6 years old.
Oh, it was that young. I see.
So I don't really remember. Yeah. So I can't really remember what my relationship was like with her before that. So to me, it was always that's who she was. Like I remember the transition happening. But at that age, your relationship with your mom is very, she's just the matriarch. But she disowned me when she saw that I wasn't wearing hijab in public. I was still a Muslim, but just the fact that I had decided to not wear hijab anymore, which is something that is she felt was obligatory. Like it's you must wear hijab if you're a woman. So the fact that I didn't want to wear it was enough for her to decide that she doesn't want me in her life anymore, and that I should be killed.
What actually what came over your mother when she decided to become a born-again Muslim? Did she hear about the religion through her husband? It was through the husband.
Well, what's interesting is I think looking back, hindsight being 2020, you can really see that my mom just followed the exact same trajectory as the rest of the world. A lot of the Muslim world just became very, very anti-Western, pro-Islamist in the late 70s, early 80s. It just started to become more and more pronounced. So but when my mom started wearing hijab, nobody in her family was wearing it. But, by the time the 80s were over, everybody in my family was wearing hijab, and some of them were wearing niqab. That's in Egypt, in New York, in Seattle, in Germany, in Canada. It didn't matter. It was happening everywhere. And you could see it with our mosque. Our mosque was small and we had an imam from India, and then all of a sudden it became huge and we had all this money from Saudi Arabia coming in, and that you could see it also happening with like Osama bin Laden and all of that stuff, the Mujahideen in Afghanistan. Like it was happening politically, it was happening socially, and she just was a part of that. That Islamization has been going on for a while, ever since the Islamic regime took over in Iran, and that's when it kind of started, and it's just been growing since then.
Do you think this increase in fundamentalist Islamic practices is a response to something?
Yeah, so the Muslim Brotherhood, in their mission statement, they explained that when the Ottoman Empire fell in the 20s, they wanted to rebuild the Islamic Empire, and they understood that you couldn't rebuild it the same way they built it the first time, so you couldn't do it using the sword. So they said the best way to do it this time is through using diplomacy. So they identified 3 ways that they would do it. Number 1, using secular laws against themselves. Number 2, through the wombs of Muslim mothers. So that means basically through childbirth. And number 3, through immigration. And so they've been working on those 3 processes. This is their way of, Islamizing Europe was their goal, to get back the. So you'll see that Erdogan in Turkey he sees himself as the new Khalifa. He wants to lead a new caliphate. And so that was their goal. And they did it through building hospitals, building schools, through bringing people onto their side in a positive way. So it's not the same way as jihadis that are very violent and aggressive, but they were doing.
Yasmine frozen, Jane, for you?
Yeah, her video feed's frozen. I'm not sure if we're still connected. It was getting a bit worse there for me in terms of the audio.
Yeah, I couldn't hear.
Yeah, she's disappeared now.
Oh, she's dropped.
Yeah. Oh,
I thought it was my network, so I switched off my camera.
No, I think it's
But,
due to being in South Africa, the connection's probably not so great.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I've got a thunderstorm here, so I thought it was me, but
anyway.
Oh, well, she'll be back in a minute.
I had some really good questions for her.
Oh, hold on.
I've written them down.
Hold on to them. She'll be back. Okay. Yeah, we have to think about the song because still, if we have any lyrics, it's still a hot potato for me. I'd have to think about what I could sing about.
Yeah, it's a pretty heavy subject. So whatever you do, it has to be approached with some sincerity.
Yeah, I can't say take off your hijab and things like that. I don't want to end up on any lists.
Yeah, hit lists.
Between you and me. Not that they'd find me here in the South of Italy, but
no, to be honest, you couldn't tell where the heck you are. Yes. You could be in an underground bunker right now.
Yeah. It was interesting what she was saying about the history of it. I mean, it's
yeah, she's got a really good knowledge of how Islamic culture has evolved even prior to her lifetime. She's talking about how it's become more fundamentalist since the 70s, and by the end of the 80s, everyone was wearing hijab. And prior to that, it was, you have so many casual Christians, people who say that they're at least culturally Christian, but they're not really practicing. To me, having lived in this day and age, it's incomprehensible that you could be a casual Muslim. I've never seen such a thing. And when I had Muslim friends, their parents would often wouldn't let them go out, or at least they weren't even allowed out on Sundays. Had to observe all the prayers and fasting rules. Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite a labor-intensive religion.
It is, and I sometimes wonder, is it almost like a form of asceticism, that there's so much kind of such a sacrificial nature? Because
what's asceticism
is like when you're showy about how you're making yourself suffer for God's sake.
Like aesthetically.
Yeah. being like praying in public,
Yeah,
that
like
kind
pious.
of thing. Trying
Okay.
to gain like recognition or personal advantage by saying, "Oh, look at me! I fast 5 days a week or something," you know. Or I give look at me! I give so much money away to the mosque, and I have so little left for myself.
You see, I couldn't say anything like that. I'm paranoid about being racist, so I wouldn't even think to say that, because I could worry it'd be misinterpreted. But I see what you mean. I mean, I guess to an extent, all religion is, I guess we do. The ego creeps in everywhere, But,
it's hard to avoid. Religion is a tricky subject, and that's what we're here for.
it is a minefield,
Yeah.
no? Yeah.
So I'm not sure if Yasmine's tried to email us, tried to get back.
Oh yeah, let's have a look. Let's have a look at the old email.
Not in my inbox.
Not me yet.
She's got the Squadcast link.
This is proving to.
Yeah.
She has, yeah. Maybe if the internet comes back. It's proving to be quite a tricky interview, this one. It must be. Maybe the gods are angry with us.
Well,
getting a lot
rightfully
of
so.
interference, Oh, I'm on a roller coaster of emotions. Never mind Islam. Just trying to get an internet connection is causing me enough emotional
despair.
Yeah.
Oh well. Right. Well. Okay. Going back to the song. Or not. Hang on.
4G signal around. Oh, you good?
Maybe every time you talk about the song, she's going to come back. So this could be a good strategy.
This is going to be absolute hell to edit.
How do you were listening?
No, I
was just talking about that. I was just talking about
talking about how we going to edit.
Before you go again, could you turn your video off just so
hide cam?
Yeah, maybe that you would use up a less bandwidth, and maybe.
There we go.
Okay, just seeing the Y now. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
All right, that's
fingers
good.
crossed. Pray to Allah and everybody. Actually, not.
Yeah, maybe
to
we should have done a prayer here.
Yeah. It would do the opposite. Allah doesn't want this conversation to happen.
I think that's the reason. I mean, I'm starting to believe there's greater powers at work here, and they're not happy.
He's definitely screwing with your internet connection.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So where were we then? What were we saying that was so upsetting?
So I was saying in Ayaan Hirsi Ali, in her book Infidel, she describes how she was recruited by the Muslim Brotherhood. So it was in a very positive, loving, kind, community kind of manner that she slowly found herself becoming more and more radicalized until she was basically an Islamist. And she was much more devout than anybody else in her family because she was going to these halaqas, these circles where you sit around and you talk about the Quran and you talk about what we can do to spread the word of Allah and all that stuff. I used to do the same thing. So when I was reading her book, even though for her it was happening in Mogadishu, for me it was happening in Vancouver, Canada, it's the same process.
So it really is connected.
So are Muslims kind of...
It's the ideology.
Yeah. So is there like a whole thing with proselytizing then within the Muslim faith? Because,
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So another person who talks about that is Majid Nawaz in his book Radical. And he also talks about how they proselytize and how he became a recruiter as well.
Yeah, because I wonder how difficult it is to kind of gain new recruits, because I think from a Western perspective, there's quite a distance between Western culture and Islamic culture. So I'm interested to know, how do people make that transition without being, like kind of raised within that culture from infancy?
So when you're raised in a Muslim community, even if you're in the West, you're always very aware of the fact that it's us and them.
Mhm.
So you're in this society, but you're not part of this society. So a common phrase that's used is just because if you were born in a barn, it wouldn't make you a horse. So just because you're born in the UK doesn't make you British. Just because you're born in America doesn't make you American. So you're still, your first and foremost identity is connected to the Ummah, is connected to the Muslim community. And that becomes so much more zealous than it would if you were being brought up in Egypt or in Pakistan, believe it or not. Because if you're in one of those countries, your family doesn't have to squeeze so hard because you're in an Islamic society. But when you're in a non-Islamic society, the walls around you are so thick where your family and your community is trying to separate you from the infidels that are right there. So, so it's very often, my friend Faisal who grew up in Iraq, he has an organization called Ideas Beyond Borders. He's an amazing man. If your listeners want to Google him and the work he does, he's amazed at how him being brought up in Iraq under Saddam Hussein, he had more of a liberal upbringing than I did, being brought up in Canada, or, a mutual friend of ours being brought up in America. So it's kind of like if you're an expat, and you're not living in your own country, then you will celebrate like, say for us as Canadians, if we're living overseas, we're going to celebrate Canada Day so much more than we would if we were in Canada. So it's kind of like that. They just become so connected to the home country and to the home culture, and they really, really want to avoid their children picking up liberal ideas and infidel ideas.
And because
What
of
about
the potential exposure to Western ideas, are Muslim children and teenagers discouraged from attending university, further education, because they might be exposed to something controversial within the faith?
I wouldn't say that they're discouraged from going to university, but like there are some things that happen, like in the country of Qatar, where they have a lot of money. They have, instead of sending their kids to America to get educated, they have built a Texas A&M, a Virginia Commonwealth, all sorts of different universities. They built them in their country so that their kids can go to university without the threat of them picking up Western ideas. So there is there is a value for education, but there's a constant fear that when you're getting your kids educated, that there is a nervousness that they might pick up some, Western ideas. Now, that having said that, that's not a universal truth. The valuing education, like generally, like in my experience, education was not valued for me as a woman, because as a girl, my role was to learn how to be a good wife and a good mother. And there would be no point in education, because your whole reason for getting an education is for getting a job and having a career and being an independent person. And that's not the route my life was going to take. So there was, I never imagined that I would ever go to college or university. That was never in the cards for me until I was able to get away and do that for myself. So yeah, there is that. Yeah, there's a constant fear between the two.
But you did eventually get to go to university, and you studied history of religion. When you began that
Correct.
course, how much of an impact did the new knowledge you acquired have on you?
Well, I didn't even realize how much it was going to change my life. I took it simply because I thought it would be an easy A,
Okay.
because I was so versed in 1/3 of the curriculum. I knew Islam inside out, so I thought, well, this is easy. And my prof was he grew up in Lebanon. He was an Arab man. So him and I kind of had this connection where we had a cultural understanding of each other. And he was able to, like, he knew exactly the parts of the Quran and the Hadith that I needed to see. He knew the lines that he needed to draw for me to be able to recognize the fallacies. And yeah, that happened. And 9/11 happened at the same time. So it was kind of like a barrage on the senses. I had the emotional thing from 9/11 happening, and then I had the intellectual side happening from taking this course. So things fell apart pretty quickly because I knew when 9/11 happened, I was very aware that that's what my religion teaches. And it's very different from theoretically talking about it in the mosque every Friday or in Islamic school or an Islamic class. It's very different from actually watching the news and seeing this happen. And it's now reality. So a woman that I know in Iraq went through the same thing when ISIS rose up there. She started to feel like, this is real life now. This is so different from just talking about it. Now I can see what Islam preaches and I want nothing to do with it. And that's what happened with me with 9/11. I could see the reality of what my religion was asking, and I didn't want to be connected to it in any way. I didn't want to be part of I didn't want to identify with the people that had done this. And so that's why it all fell apart so quickly. So it was that history of religions course as well as 9/11 happening at the same time that did it.
And it was at that moment that you decided, okay, I'm an apostate I'm an ex-Muslim.
It was a very slow boil. It wasn't that quick.
Transition.
It was very, yeah, I went from, okay, I'm still a Muslim, but I don't want to wear hijab and I'm going to stop praying. And then, slowly I'm going to drink alcohol, and just bit by bit. And while that's happening, of course, you're still fearing that you're going to burn in hell. And so you're kind of living this, we call it in the closet. We use the same terminology because you're kind of, you haven't admitted to yourself that you're not Muslim anymore, but you are you're living like you're not Muslim. Yeah. And so I went through that for years. And then it was like, oh, I'm a Muslim, but I'm not practicing. Oh, I don't believe in organized religion. Oh, I'm spiritual, but I'm not religious, and da, 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 da. And it took quite a while before I came to the point where I could actually say, yep, I definitely don't believe in any of these religions. I can't say for sure that there is no higher power, but I can say for sure he didn't write this book.
So we've got to turn this into a song. So I've been chatting with Shane about this, and he's a fantastic musician, so the music's no problem. We're just worrying about what the lyrical content should be.
Yeah, or even whether there should be any lyrical content, because what I primarily do is I write instrumental music. I mean, I've worked with loads of songwriters in the past, but first and foremost, I tend to write piano music, classical piano music. And that can be quite poignant in and of itself. So you're more than welcome to have some input on where we take this musically.
Oh, Shane, I would never. I have.
Yeah. What key do you think you should write it in? What's your preferred key, Yasmine?
Yeah, no. I mean, if you asked your 3-year-old self, 3-year-old Shane would have more to offer.
Well, 3-year-old Shane knows more about music than any of us. So
yes, of course, yeah. So yeah, no, I have nothing to add at all.
Because I was wondering if I could get away without any lyrics, because it's a bit of a minefield for me as a
public figure.
I have all these hang-ups as I'm at these, because we're all paranoid about being racist. Like all your liberal, all your Ben Afflecks, all your, it's it
is a minefield. Yes,
it is a minefield. No, we don't want to become across as anti-Muslim, because that's not what we are, and it's I don't know anything. I've got who am I to say as well? So it's like
It's not even, I would never want anybody to ever be anti-Muslim, obviously, but it is about being anti-control in general. It doesn't even have to specifically be about Islam, because the exact same things you can see happening in Hasidic Jewish communities, in fundamentalist Christian communities like the Westboro Baptist Church. You can see it happening in communities that have nothing to do with religion. You can see it in white supremacist communities, or in communist communities. Like there's that control over a person's mind and forcing them to conform, to get in line, basically, and to villainize independent thinkers is a very human thing. My story just is one specific flavor of it, but we see it over and over and over again. I mean, I'm obsessed with watching documentaries about cults because I find it to be really healing to recognize that so many other people have been through what I have been through. Again, different flavors of it, but it's all very similar. It's a slow boil of the frog, and before you know it, I'm lucky. Other people, like my daughter's father, his slow boil, it led to him becoming a terrorist. And so, it can lead people in all sorts of horrible directions. And, that's what happens. That's what indoctrination is. That's what brainwashing is. It just, you lose yourself, you lose your humanity. And I think that's really the common denominator here. So it doesn't even have to be about Islam specifically.
So what is it? Like, people want power over other people? What's sort of the red line here? What's the...
I think that it always comes down to power and control. Yes. In different situations, it can be for different reasons, but quite often when you learn about how cults work, there's one charismatic, usually a man, almost always a man, charismatic leader, and he gets drunk on the power, and he starts to get more and more vicious and violent the more power he has. I mean, Muhammad didn't start out as a bad guy. He didn't start out as a child rapist. He didn't start out as a warmonger. He started out with somebody who was an orphan. He was an orphan. And in the Arab world, tribes are very important. Families are very important. And he always felt that he didn't belong anywhere. And so that's why he wanted to create a religion that made all Arab tribes feel that they worshipped one God, that we were all one. We're all one big family. We're all one big ummah. And that's why today you'll see people from Malaysia, Somalia, Egypt, Russia, Canada, France, doesn't matter where they're from, they are united by this idea of being part of an ummah. And that came from Muhammad's feeling of neglect because he wasn't part of a family. So he wanted to create a big family. So it started with that idea. But the more he grew, the more power he got. And the more power he got, the more power hungry he became. And that's when he started to do the warmongering, sex slaves, and all of that horrific stuff. That was later on in his life. And, if you look at Jim Jones, or if you look at any other cult leader, it started out like that. They start off with all of this positive intent of like, we're a community, let's work together, let's do positive things for the world. And then slowly, the more power they get, that's when they start to turn into these vicious monsters.
But people perpetuate it now. I mean, people, even women and mothers and fathers, and So
Yes,
yeah.
we are all susceptible. We're such social animals. We want to be part of a tribe so badly. It is so comforting, it's so affirming. It's like a basic need for us. And so people get attracted to these groups. And quite often they'll say things, and I said these things, I talk to people all the time that say these things like, you'll just ignore these parts, like, I don't like that. I disagree with that. I'll just pretend it's not there, and I'll just focus on all of the things that I like. And unfortunately, that can only take you so far, because eventually those parts that you're trying to ignore, they're not going anywhere. They're still there. So you're going to have to face them at some point.
So there's also this urge for community,
Yeah.
for a place and for a support network, and
Yes, very, very much so. And that's why the hardest part of leaving Islam is being ousted by your family. And that's why Catholics and Scientologists and so many other religious groups have excommunication. That's why it exists. That's why within Islam, you are to be killed if you leave, because they know how much of a deterrent that will be for you. If you're told you're never going to see your family again if you leave this group, then people will stay. I mean, Yusuf Qaradawi, who is a member of the Muslim Brotherhood, he has a video where he was in one of his sermons. He said, if we did not kill apostates for leaving Islam, there would be no more Muslims left. I mean, they openly understand that that's what they're doing. Yeah.
Do you sense that there is in any kind of imminent collapse of Islam because of the open information is so open these days? Anyone with an internet connection that's not state regulated can find out, testimonies from ex-Muslims.
I hope so. And I love that question, because it's very hopeful, and it is something that I see evidence of all the time, because people are contacting me from their anonymous accounts on Twitter. And there have been polls that have been taken, but of course, those you can't really be sure of these polls because people are afraid to give the right answers. But there is a lot of evidence, like from countries like Iran, or Saudi Arabia, which are Sharia countries. So they are the most, the tightest control is on those people. And that's where you can see the most people leaving the religion.
And in Iran, is Iran one of the countries where women cannot leave without a male accompanying them?
Yes.
It is.
Yes, it is. But Iranian people, like an Iranian man wouldn't do that to his wife or sister or whatever, but the government demands it. So it's kind of different. It's the same law that Saudi Arabia has, which is a woman can't travel without her husband's consent. But an Iranian man would never, well, I mean, not never, but very, very rarely prevent his wife from traveling, or his sister or his daughter or his whatever. So the men in that country are not, it's not part of their culture to do that. Whereas in Saudi Arabia, that same law exists, the guardianship law, but the guardians very much do control the women and their families. And it's to the point that the government has lifted restrictions. Like the government says women are allowed to drive if they want, women are allowed to travel if they want, women are allowed to live alone if they want. But the men in those societies, the fathers, the brothers, the guardians, essentially, still won't allow the women and their families to do that. So even though the government is allowing it, they're restricted by their families. Right. And the government will never intervene. Like the government will never step between a father and his daughter. Like the government will never say to a father, no, you have to let her live alone because she doesn't want to live with you. No, that's not the way. It never, because they're so tribal, that could never happen. So the father's decision is first before the government's.
What do you think about the influence of people like Apostate Prophet? I think he's somewhere approaching 1 million subscribers now, if he hasn't passed it.
I think all that stuff is great. I think everybody on YouTube, everybody on Twitter, everybody on Instagram. So I mentioned my friend Faisal Al-Mutar, who is an Iraqi man that has an organization called Ideas Beyond Borders. So what he does is he translates, Sam Harris's books or Richard Dawkins's books, and he puts them online. All of that stuff is valuable. People in a country that restricts you so much, that forces you for everybody to sing in the exact same tune, there's no freedom of thought. There's no counter narratives. Everybody has to follow this exact same drumbeat. In those societies, people there are just starving for different information, starving for different ideas. And that's why the internet is so valuable. So yes, I agree with you, Shane. I do think that it is piercing through. And it's like Maryam Namazi coined it when she said there's a tsunami of ex-Muslims all over the world. It's just swelling, it's growing, and it's that you won't see or hear from them because their countries are restricting them, so they have to stay quiet. But they do exist, and as soon as there's a separation of mosque and state, that's when you'll see how few people are actually happy under Sharia.
Yeah, I've always had this impression that there is a lot of silent suffering going on within a lot of these Islamic countries, where the people are just simply cornered and they're unable to speak, unable to tell anyone how they really feel, what they really think, how they prefer to live.
Yes, 100%. And that's why I started the campaign Free from Hijab, was just to show how many women are forced to wear this when they don't want to. Because there's this pervasive idea that women want to cover themselves up like that in 40-degree heat in the desert. Like they love to wear black nylon covering their face. It's empowering, Jack. It's insane. It's absolutely. Are they not human beings? Like, why would you ever think that was something that a human would want? But so it's just to highlight, to let people see, like, no, these women are being forced to, under threat of imprisonment in some countries, under threat of getting acid thrown in their faces. These things happen, right? People get attacked, not just in the Muslim majority world either, all over the world. So it is a very difficult, and that's just the hijab. That's just one aspect of all of the restrictions that are put on people.
You've in the past said that you think the hijab is a tool for dehumanization.
Yes, I do. I think that it's a tool of subjugation. It's to remind a woman you are lesser than, you are different, you are not the same.
It's kind of like
it's a gender segregating tool.
It's a bit like Animal Farm, isn't it? In the sense of you're lesser, but you're equal somehow.
Yeah.
Some are more equal than others.
There's not even. Yes.
And to make it black as well, I mean, that absorbs the heat as well. It could have been white, no?
Yeah. It could have been cotton.
Yeah, linen.
But yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But no, I mean, obviously, even in white linen, it's the act of forcing somebody to wear something, that they didn't choose to wear for themselves. If a Muslim woman chooses to wear hijab, that's fantastic. All the power to her. That's great. You do what you want to do. But the problem is that when a woman decides that she doesn't want to wear it, She's up against so many obstacles. So it's kind of like what we were saying before of like being in the closet. You just accept it. You just ignore this part, ignore that part. You know, people will say, oh, I thought hijab was supposed to be for modesty. So how come these women in hijab are wearing such tight jeans and so much makeup? And I'm like, because they're trying to express their individuality while still being forced to wear this cloth on their head. So these are as soon as you see that, you know that that's a woman who doesn't want to be wearing that, but she's wearing it because of an expectation from her family. And she hasn't yet sort of reached that point of cognitive dissonance where she is forced to make a decision. You know, how important is it for me to live as an individual? Is it worth losing my family?
And the like things like the New Zealand Prime Minister wore covered her head as a sign of respect for Christchurch.
So that's problematic because, of course, we want to support the Muslim community, but you do not support the Muslim community by wearing a tool of subjugation that Muslims fight against. You know, that's not a universal thing. More Muslim women in the West do not wear hijab. The majority of Muslim women in the West do not wear hijab because they don't have to here. You know, of course, they have the familial restrictions and the community restrictions, but it's still not as restrictive as if you were in Egypt or Afghanistan or Saudi Arabia or whatever. And so the ones that do not want to wear it at least have a fighting chance. So when she wears that, she is standing in solidarity with the fundamentalist Muslims, not with the open-minded, moderate, liberal Muslims who believe that women should wear whatever they want to wear. So she stepped on, you know, a hornet's nest when she did that. It was not the right thing to do. It was like supporting the Hasidic Jewish community by shaving her head and putting on a wig. Not just the Hasidic, sorry. It's like supporting the whole Jewish community. Do you know what I mean? Because Hasidics are such a small sect of extremists. And so that's really what she was doing. Although with Muslims, of course, they're a much larger percentage than Hasidics are among Jews.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a minefield.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about, and I'm not sure how
I would
you're
say
going
that I
to
have mixed feelings about the burkini.
Yeah, wish us luck.
Yeah. Yeah, you've obviously got a negative attitude towards the hijab as an item of clothing, but what would you say in regards to the burkini? Because I think there's a mixture of things going on. On the one hand, it's good that Muslim women are able to go swimming, which is, you know, good for physical health, but then at the same time they're still wearing a burqa just to go swimming.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that the reason why women are not going swimming is not because they didn't have a lycra burkini. That's not the reason. The reason why Muslim women aren't doing sports is not because they didn't have a hijab with a Nike swoosh on it. You know, these companies are not helping to change the mindset. They are just facilitating the mindset. So the reason why women are not engaged in sports, whether it be swimming or horseback riding or soccer or whatever it is because there's this cultural taboo around it. And that comes, again, it's with the obsession with virginity. And I'm going to recommend to you a movie by a Saudi Arabian director. And the movie is called Wajda, Wadjda. And it's about a 10-year-old girl who just wants to ride a bicycle. She wants to ride a bicycle. And she's not allowed to ride a bicycle because her parents are afraid she's going to break her hymen. And then when she gets married, she won't be a virgin anymore. That's why girls don't engage in sports. So Nike creating a hijab with a swoosh on it or some company creating a burkini is doing nothing to counter that misogynist, backward, archaic obsession with virginity mindset. It is simply a way to, make money off of that mindset.
And it's not even based on biological truths.
No, it's not. It's ridiculous. Yeah.
Are there any young singers or rappers from the Muslim speaking? Does they have a voice? Is there a young? I'm just thinking Shane
There
and I
are
not.
some. I do see some videos every now and then of people from the Kurdish community in Afghanistan. And I think I saw a young Palestinian boy as well. Like there are some people, but music is haram, right? Music is forbidden. So this might be an interesting thing for you to contemplate, Shane. But yeah, so all music is forbidden. And the only thing that's allowed is for a male to recite the Quran or to recite a nasheed, like a poetry.
I was cycling through Indonesia once, and I was busking at during Ramadan, so I was cycling up the
wow.
coast. Yeah, and so there was no food. That was another problem. It was only so they have these markets at midnight. At sunset, and so people buy their food and then they sit down, and then when the sun sets, they all eat. So and they share their food with us, and we were busking, because we'd done that in Australia, and we went up into Indonesia, and we were in Malaysia. Sorry, Malaysia was the Muslim country we were cycling through, and I was the first live music they'd ever heard. The first music. Yeah. So I got good
that's
reviews.
pretty cool for
I
you, though.
wasn't.
Yeah.
That was great.
Yeah,
I'm going back. Yeah.
Yeah, Yasmine. One
Get me.
of the saddest things I heard from your story, Yasmine, was the time when your was it your stepfather who came in and broke all of the records and said, "This is haram. Music is haram."
Yeah.
Like just the fact that tangible, physical media, vinyl records being smashed up when they're so cherished and valued.
Yeah.
I can't imagine that.
Thank
I
God for
I have a
Spotify.
record collection, and I'm selective about what I buy and stuff. That would just tear me apart because I wouldn't even be able to get copies of some of these again.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's all of that you described, and then also watching your mother just stand there and do nothing as some man is damaging her property.
Was she even
so
shocked?
Imagine you standing there while somebody was doing this.
Yeah. Was she even shocked by this?
Sorry.
Or just complacent?
She did not appear shocked at all. She was very complacent. She was just looking at the carpet very submissively. I was shocked. I was shocked that because as a little kid, if my brother came into my room and started, breaking my Barbies or something, I would be angry. I'm like, how are you letting this guy come in here and break your stuff? That's how I was feeling at the time. And so it was really surprising for me to see that she just stood there and did nothing and just let him break her things.
Yeah, and there seems to be a streak of indulgence in that as well. He's not just saying, no, you're going to give these records away or something. He has to destroy them.
Yes. Yeah, because they're evil. So giving them away they still exist. You're still facilitating or perpetuating the evil. You have to get rid of it. You have to destroy it.
Well, isn't it ironic then that after that, you're going to have a song made about you?
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
What better recovery could you ask for?
Yeah. Well, I'm super inspired. I don't think I can take any more inspiration. So we should just probably go get to work on the song.
I think so.
Okay. Thank you both so much. I'm sorry about all of the issues with the internet, but we did it.
Yeah.
And it was wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much,
both of you being so flexible,
for powering through and everything. And you've given me such a broader insight into what Islamic culture's actually like. not just
Yes, me
because
too. Thank you.
I'll always be an outsider, and I'll always need some enlightening to have a clearer image of what it's really like on the inside.
Yeah. So thank you very much for caring enough to want to know what it's like for others. I appreciate that. That's
ultimately
very
it's
validating.
a humanitarian cause.
Yeah. So, and I'm
thanks,
very
Yasmine.
honored. I'm looking forward to hearing the music that comes out of this. Thank you both so much.
Thank you very much to you,
Take care.
Yasmine. All right, take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye. I think her internet connection picked up quite a lot towards the end of that. The
Yeah, it was
last
up
half
and
an
down.
hour seemed good.
Okay,
So
hopefully
maybe
I can cut that.
So maybe we can sort of like figure out which chunks are good.
Okay. Yeah. I took a few notes, so I like that slow boil idea. That could be something. So I think I'll just let it.
Oh, like something like a piece of music where it starts just sparse, solitary notes, and then it builds up, and that's like the slow boil, thickening up texturally.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a really good idea, because it's also quite easy to pull off, because you can do a lot of it through just textural arrangement, where you just keep adding layers, new loops, conflicting rhythms and things.
Right.
Maybe it can, build up towards. It can start out really peaceful, and it can build up to something which is like, really knocking on the door.
Right.
And then just have like a sudden ending
when it goes off the boil.
The note of the note of the tail, like a
Okay.
ringing noise or something. I don't know.
Wow.
You know what I mean? I always like to think of my music visually, like I said before.
Okay.
Because then once you go in with that, it's your listeners are also going to pick up on that overall contour of the music.
I always say that Podsongs is like the end of a movie, the song at the end of the movie. It's that dramatic, when the credits go up and your heartstring plays on your heartstrings, and it's exactly in tune with what you've just seen, and it sums up that. So this is that.
Yeah, so this is horribly beautiful, and I say horribly beautiful because it's just like achingly beautiful bit of music in the Shawshank Redemption soundtrack, and I think that it's called "So Was Red" on the soundtrack CD, and it's one thing just to listen to this really gorgeous piano motif on its own, and it's a totally another thing to watch the movie and then be hit in the heart with that.
There you go. That's what we want to hit people with.
So we have the podcast, and now we've got the song.
Yeah, as if by magic.
maybe more brute force editing this time. Let's not think about that one.
And a lot of sweat to come up with the music.
Yeah.
So,
okay, so in terms of actually going about this process, how is the best way for us to work?
Well, now it's all fresh in our minds. Let's. I've got my guitar here. I'll have a think if anything comes in, and then you also see if you're receiving anything, and then in a few days, let's send some messages and see if we've got anything we want to present.
Okay, so we'll both go off on our own, will we?
I think that's
come
better,
up with some ideas
in the dark,
and then we can find like a fusion, I guess, or go with the best option.
Exactly.
Don't need to get too attached to our exact ideas.
No, well, I'm pretty confident in you. So
in the room.
I'm betting on you. So I can't wait to hear.
How does your production team get involved with things then? So they conduct some of the recording and mixing aspects.
Yeah, we can mix and master and add stuff to any raw to what you and I come up with. They can add something too. So with maybe it's another pair of ears. It's another pair of creative ideas they can come on top.
Yeah, because I can hear that you're. I mean, I've been listening to the track "Prison of Materialism." It's a mouthful. Quite a lot, and I absolutely love the mix on that track. I love the chopping effect on the guitars and things, and the way your voice has been processed to sound so kind of dark and I don't know, a bit twisted.
Thanks very much.
It's really and above all, what's making that song shine is your inflection, your delivery of the lines.
Oh, thank you.
It's almost like listening to an actor rather than a singer at times, and combined with the music video, it's a real 3D experience.
Oh, thanks very much. That's very kind of you to say, Shane. I do appreciate it.
Only telling you what I really think.
I take it as a compliment. I take it in the spirit with which it was meant. Thank you.
Cool. Okay, well, on that happy note, then, do you think we should close up for the day, and we'll go our separate ways for the time being, and see if we come up with anything. I started a piece of music yesterday, like I was saying. It may not be appropriate. I may need to start with a blank canvas, but I've got things I can flesh out, and send over.
That's good. Yeah, the more clay we have, the more clay we have now, the more we can.
Yeah,
the bigger statue we can make.
And you're not really fussy about genre. I think you've done such a variety over the different volumes of Podsongs.
Oh yeah, it's a melting pot. Whatever we come up with, whatever the song needs.
Great. Okay, so just totally treat it as an artistic project,
right,
rather than anything genre bound. Cool.
Exactly.
All right.
All right,
I like
Shane.
being free.
Yeah, can't wait to hear it.
All right, I can't wait to hear your snippets as well. Okay, we'll reconvene in a few days. All right.
Bye-bye.
Have a good one.
Well, as you can hear, I bottled out. I didn't do any lyrics, any singing. But really, when you have music like that, you don't really need it. So normally at the end of the show, I thank my musicians. But in this case, it was just Shane. We did a little bit of After Effects just to make it a collaboration. But all credit to the man himself. Thank you to you, the listener. If you could please share this episode with friends via WhatsApp. Just send it to 3 people now. I'd really appreciate it. That's all I'm asking. Thanks very much. See you next time.